I can think of no greater question than what is your life's purpose, right? I mean, if you're in the game of self-examination, like, was it Socrates who said the unexamined life is not worth living? Well, I would add to that the life without purpose isn't worth living. And, I don't mean that. There's a lot, you hear a lot of cliches around this subject of living your life's purpose. For me, is pretty logical. At some level, you have a unique competitive advantage in some certain area. I've never met somebody in all my years as an investor entrepreneur who doesn't have a little edge where it's like, man, that person's good at that. That comes natural to that person. And unfortunately, in the modern education system, there is basically 0 hours put into you and I targeting down what that thing is. And the penalty for not figuring out your life's purpose, it's not just a life of confusion. It's not like a gut, it's not just that sinking feeling when you're at your job, like, I don't think I should be doing this. There's something more for me. There is also the unintended consequence of it's a great way to stay poor. If you want to be poor, do what you're not naturally good at. So when people ask me that, because I get that question a lot, Tai, how did you figure out what you should do with your life? It's not like one day you will ever wake up and there's this holy grail, there's this epiphany, although that happens to some people. I was interviewing Rainn Wilson. I'm going to release that video. If you've seen The Office, he plays Dwight Schrute, one of the main characters, and he had an epiphany that he should be an actor. He was watching a movie, a musical, I think it was Rent, in New York City, and it just hit him. He said he literally started crying in the middle of the movie theater and realized, like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And that held him through all those years when he wasn't a successful actor. And before he was in The Office, literally up to the day or the week before he got that major role in Hollywood, he was broke. I think he was paying, he said, rent with credit cards. But you see, since he knew what his purpose was, since he had that epiphany, he was able to fight and persevere through all those days when he didn't have a real good, any potential for his acting career. And so for you and I, how do you figure that out? Well, I would say number one thing is you have to understand feedback loops. Jeff Bezos, I now call them in business CDRs, customer-driven response. Or you could, in this case, if you're not an entrepreneur, you could call it, HDRs, human-driven response. Like, what's the feedback loop that you've gotten in your life from other people, unbiased people? You can't just use your mom and dad. Your mom and dad will pat you on the back and say, oh, you're so great at everything you do. Forget that. When I say human-driven response, I mean humanity as a whole, 7.3 billion people. If you listen to them, they will give you feedback. It's just most of us are too stubborn to listen in and go, oh yeah, every time I sing, dogs bark and people run out the door. If that's you, don't have American Idol syndrome. Quit singing. If you think you're an athlete, but every time you try out, you're always getting completely smoked by other athletes, there's a time to stick to it, and there's a time to go, yeah, like Randy Jackson would say on American Idol, hey dog, maybe there's something else you should be doing. And when you start living a life of feedback instead of a life of stubbornness, and when you start living a life of experimentation, because that's number two. Number one is listening to the feedback. Number two is experiment. And the difference between listening to the feedback and number two, trying out and experimenting, is that listening is passive and starting to experiment is active. So you get out there and you do 5 different internships, take 3 different jobs in a summer. I say the average experiment should be 2 months. You don't know. I heard Warren Buffett at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting. Some kid got up, some 12-year-old, and said, what should I do for a living? How do I know my purpose? And Warren Buffett, the billionaire, he's 84, 85. He said, well, why don't you go visit or talk to 10 CEOs at companies that you have a remote interest in? He said, by the time you're done talking to them, you're going to start to get an idea, because that's an experiment, of where you should really fit in this big bad world. Because if you can do that, you'll figure out how to make a hell of a lot of money. If you can't, you'll be floundering like the vast majority of people. Remember, there's this study out that the average person, 85% of their day is spent not doing something that they have a unique strength in. You don't want to be part of that 85%. You don't want to be part of that 85%. You want to be part of the percentage of the planet that wakes up in the morning and does what Warren Buffett does. He says he tap dances to work. Why would you tap dance to work at 85? Why would you jump out of bed? Because you know you're doing what you're uniquely suited to do. Warren Buffett was always good at math. He liked numbers. He liked money. So what did he end up doing? Boom. He ended up doing investing. Steve Jobs liked design. He liked the intricacies of putting something together and promoting it. He built Apple. When you look at people who love food, the guy Chobani, who started Chobani, the yogurt, he became a billionaire. Sarah Blakely, you know, she was a saleswoman, and then she had a problem in her life, which was, you know, how her whatever pantyhose fit. And she started Spanx to solve that problem. And she built it around something she was uniquely suited to do, which was understanding sales and marketing and branding. And she did. She got on Oprah, and that takes sales, marketing, persuasion skills, and that's what she did. So I'm going to be recording, I'm going to be actually shooting a live talk on this subject. If you want to figure out what your destiny is, you're not quite sure, I'm going to be talking about this. So there's a little button here somewhere. Click the button, it'll take you to my website, and I'll be doing a free live online talk. So you can watch it on your phone or your computer. I've been doing these the last couple months, getting 10 or 15,000 people on. So make sure you click here. It'll pop up you over to my website. There's no credit card or anything. It's all free. There's no catch or anything. And so come on there, and I'm going to go a lot more in depth because there's a lot more too. You need basically a map. If you don't have the map, you will flounder. And I see people floundering at every turn. Joel Salatin used to say, Tai, you know, he's my first mentor. He said, Tai, there's nothing worse than getting good at the wrong thing. Like, you look back at life and you're like, oh, I'm really good at, you know, working in a restaurant, but I never really wanted to work in a restaurant. Oh, I'm really good at working with technology. Oh, but I don't really like technology. Like, do the thing that you're suited to do. And every psychologist worth their salt knows that there's something called psychometrics. Psychometrics is unique personality types. Everybody who has 3 brothers or 3 sisters or any, any family size at all. I've got 6 brothers and 1 sister. We all know, like, every one of my brothers is not uniquely suited to do the same thing. One of them is very analytical, likes to read. One of them loves health and fitness. One of them's an artist. One of them was like a boxer. He likes to fight. One of them's very, very quiet. So that, at the end of the day, is the puzzle. It's like, okay, personality type number 16 has to fit with career type number 16. And so I wish the school system had sat down and had a semester or a quarter or even a year for all of us, preparing us. And there's so much cutting edge science that says, oh, if you're this way, you're uniquely suited for this type of destiny or career, we could call it, which is just a financial destiny. But no, what do we end up learning? Social studies, memorizing what year the Civil War was. All those things are great, but they ain't better than knowing what your destiny is. It's a tragedy of epic proportions that's being promulgated upon 7.3 billion people in the modern education system. So if you can grab the reins back of your life, no matter how old you are. Some of you are old and you've been doing the wrong thing for so long that you're completely trapped. You better jump out of it. Like the old saying goes, the chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. If you don't figure this game out quick enough, it's going to be all done, all said and done. You will look back and have infinite regrets. For those of you who are, young watching this, consider yourself lucky, because if someone had told me this, fortunately someone told me relatively young, but if someone told me this at 12, man, I would be so far ahead of where I am now. People see me like, oh, you're pretty far ahead. I'm like, yeah, but it could have been better. It could have been better. So Remember, feedback, listening, adaptability, then actively pursuing experiments. I'm going to show you some experiments you can set up. I'm going to show you some warning signs on this live talk that you are completely off base. I'm going to show you how to get real clear, at least how to get, I always say destiny is like a series of doors. And a lot of people say, Tai, how do I see all the way through all 20 doors? You can't. You have to open one to even see the next one that needs to be open. And people are afraid of that. There's a lot of fear. I just recorded this video with my boxing coach. He's an Olympic boxer, was an Olympic boxer. And he says, people are intimidated. And you lose in a boxing fight. If you lose, or I should say, you lose when you are intimidated. And the second those of you watching are cynical that this can happen, some people say, Tai, there is no destiny to life. Well, you don't think Einstein had a destiny to his life? You don't think Mahatma Gandhi put a destiny to his life? You don't think Malcolm X had one? You don't think, Alexander the Great had one? Of course they did. Some of it was man-made and maybe some of it was pre-built in at birth. And I think that all of us have. Not all of us are going to be remembered for the ages, but at least I believe all of us can have a good life. But I don't think you can have a good life when you don't know what you're doing with your life. So figure this one out. You need the compass. So click the link. We'll be going in depth on this. Okay. Bring your questions. It's live so you can interact with me. I don't have all the answers, but I'll share with you. I've talked to a lot of smart people about this subject. Just in the last couple of weeks, I've had, all these interesting, fascinating people, whether they be authors and celebrities and actors and billionaires. And I ask them all these questions. So you're going to get feedback, not just from me, but from people much smarter than me. So my big wish upon the world, my charitable wish, and I think one of the best wishes you could have on anybody is figure out what you're doing with your life. Don't let those days waste away. God, I've always known that time was quick. But you really never know it's quick until you see other people doing stuff better, faster, and living a more enjoyable life than you. That's like the wake-up call. Most people are too delusional to admit that. They see other people and like, their life isn't better. Bullshit. There's people with better lives, and they're the ones who had the feedback, ability to pull in the feedback, who had the ability to experiment quick enough, get through the iterations fast enough, that while other people were still floundering around, they were already on experiment number 17. And the next thing you know, one of those experiment hits, and it's like winning the lottery. Maybe you'll have that Rainn Wilson epiphany effect where you'll just be sitting there and you'll start crying. Or maybe it'll be like me, where I don't remember one day, but as I look back, I always had somewhat of a clear purpose that allowed me to persevere when most of my friends gave up. So click the link. It'll take you to my website. Put in your info. It'll translate the exact time into your local time zone so you know what time the live call is, since I do it here in California. It'll translate it for you, and you can grab your spot. And let me know. Put a little comment below here. In your opinion so far, 1 to 10 scale. A 1 means you have no idea what you're doing with your life. 10 means you have absolute certainty. What's your number? Leave that below and a little explanation why. And that'll get you set up. That'll get your brain working so that when you show up on the live talk that I'm going to be doing, you'll already be in gear. They say writing stuff down makes you 56% more likely to profit from it in terms of remember it, be able to put it. So leave a little comment there and click the link here. It should be up here, down here. And I'll see you on my live talk, all right? I'm headed to bed. Talk to you soon. Just saw a crazy movie. Not a crazy movie. The Suffragette. It's the story of women, women's rights. Women used to not be able to vote. Pretty interesting movie. Recorded a video review of it. But see you on this live talk. Talk to you soon.